Reese Witherspoon just turned 50, and honestly, she's stepping into this chapter of her life in a way that feels completely different from anything that came before. Because right now, for the first time in a long time, it seems like things are finally clicking into place, not just professionally, but personally too. Let's start at the beginning of this whole new chapter. Back in the summer of 2024, word started getting around that Reese had been spotted with someone new. His name is Oliver Herman, a German financier, and their first public appearance together was anything but low-key. The two reportedly rolled into New York City by helicopter, yes, a helicopter, before heading out to dinner at L'Artusi, which is one of those intimate, dimly lit spots in the West Village that screams we're not just grabbing a casual bite. It had all the energy of a movie opening scene, which is kind of fitting considering who we're talking about. At the time, people close to the situation were playing it cool. Sources told People magazine that the two were simply friends, and that Reese was in no rush to make romance a priority. She was focused on her work and her kids, and dating was something she was enjoying casually, not something she was chasing. And honestly, after everything she'd been through in her personal life, that made a lot of sense. But things didn't stay low-key for long. By early September 2024, the two were photographed leaving a hotel together in New York, holding hands. That's the kind of detail that speaks for itself. And then by October, insiders were saying she was having a genuinely great time with Oliver, that she was flying between Nashville and New York just to spend time with him. And here's the part that really signals something serious. He had started spending time around her children. That last detail matters. Reese is a mother first, and when someone gets introduced into that part of her world, it's not a casual thing. One of the things that seemed to draw her to Oliver in a real way is that he has absolutely nothing to do with Hollywood. He doesn't come from that world, he's not interested in it, and he's not trying to use proximity to her to get into it. For someone who has spent decades at the center of the entertainment industry, that kind of grounded, outside-the-bubble energy is genuinely refreshing. Fast forward to summer 2025, and there's nothing subtle about where things stand. TMZ published photos of the two in Saint-Tropez, on a yacht, kissing, swimming, completely at ease with each other. These were not the photos of two people still figuring things out. And then by September 2025, they were spotted in London, leaving the Barbican Centre hand in hand after watching a show together. People close to Reese were very clear at that point. This relationship means something real to her. He's not there for the spotlight, he's there for her. And that makes all the difference.
What's been described about their dynamic is actually kind of fascinating. According to sources, Oliver brings something into her life that she hasn't really had before in a romantic partner. Someone who pushes her intellectually, challenges her thinking, and even offers real guidance when it comes to her businesses. He's apparently been involved in conversations around Draper James and Hello Sunshine, giving her advice on strategy and direction. People close to her have described him as sharp, grounded, and genuinely invested in helping her grow. For a woman who's built an empire largely on her own instincts, finding someone who adds to that rather than distracting from it clearly feels different. Now, who exactly is Oliver Herman? He studied at Brown University, went on to get his MBA from Harvard, and launched his career at KKR before co-founding Searchlight Capital Partners in 2010, which is a global alternative investment firm. He was previously married and has 2 sons. He's also a partial owner of the New York Islanders, and alongside his late ex-wife, he was involved in founding the Sergio Foundation, which focuses on tackling major global challenges. By any measure, this is someone who operates at a very high level and completely outside of the entertainment bubble Reese has spent her career navigating. For all the excitement around this new relationship, Reese has been very intentional about not rushing anything. She's not racing toward another marriage. What she seems to be building instead is something that fits naturally into her actual life, balanced, steady, and centered around her kids. And given what the years leading up to this looked like, that approach makes complete sense. Her 2023 divorce from Jim Toth was painful. She said so openly. They had been together for over a decade, and during that time, things shifted in ways that were hard to recover from. The two had always been different in temperament. Reese driven and focused, Jim more easygoing. And as her career accelerated, they found themselves increasingly in separate worlds. Over time, the romantic connection faded, and what was left started to feel more like a co-parenting arrangement than a marriage. The turning point that friends pointed to was Jim's decision to leave his position at Creative Artists Agency to join Quibi, the ill-fated mobile streaming platform that launched in 2020 and collapsed just 6 months later, having burned through a reported $1.7 billion. Reese had reportedly raised concerns about the risk at the time, but Jim was confident. When it didn't work out, it seemed to set off a chain reaction, a kind of personal and professional identity crisis that changed the dynamic between them in ways that couldn't be undone. People close to the former couple described it as a midlife shift that fundamentally altered who Jim was, how he carried himself, and what he wanted from life. And what he wanted no longer lined up with where Reese was headed. Then, in 2021, Reese sold Hello Sunshine for around $900 million, instantly becoming one of the wealthiest women in Hollywood. Jim had been a founding board member and supported the sale, but according to sources, the aftermath of that deal forced a reckoning for both of them. Suddenly, they had more resources than they knew what to do with, and rather than drawing them closer, it seemed to illuminate just how far apart they had drifted. The divorce was not something Reese took lightly. People close to her said she was genuinely heartbroken, not just because the marriage was ending, but because she never wanted to be in that position again. She had already gone through one divorce, and she knew how hard the road back from that kind of loss could be. That first marriage, to Ryan Phillippe, lasted about 9 years. They got married in 1999 and had 2 children together, Ava and Deacon. When the marriage ended in 2008, both of them have described it as one of the most difficult periods of their lives. Reese spoke candidly in the years that followed about how the split affected her creatively, saying she felt scattered and disconnected from her work during that time, like she couldn't access the part of herself that made good decisions or took creative risks. She described feeling like she was just going through the motions professionally, and feeling like audiences could sense that too. She met Jim Toth not long after. They got engaged within a year, married in early 2011, and welcomed their son Tennessee in September 2012. For a while, they built something that looked and felt like a full life together. Jim stepped into a stepfather role alongside Ryan, and by all accounts, the blended family dynamic worked well. But over time, the cracks formed, and eventually, the foundation gave way. So here's where Reese stands now, at 50, having lived through 2 marriages, 2 divorces, the building of a media empire, and the raising of 3 kids. And instead of looking worn down by all of it, she seems to be stepping into this decade with more clarity than she's had in years. Oliver Herman isn't the center of her life. Her children are, her work is, but he seems to complement the life she's built in a way that feels right, not forced. And maybe that's the most important part of this whole story. Not the helicopter entrance or the yacht photos or the hand-holding in London, but the fact that after everything, Reese Witherspoon seems to have finally found something that fits.